Upon its release on the Famicom in May 1986, Dragon Quest, published by NEC, was quickly recognized as the first major turn-based role-playing game for consoles. However, several RPGs had already appeared on Western home systems. For instance, Dragon Stomper, published by Starpath in 1982 on Atari 2600, while titles such as Mugen no Shinzou, published by Crystal Soft in 1984, and Hydlide, published by T&E Soft in 1984, had already established the core conventions of the Japanese RPG on the PC-88. By that time, Dragon Quest's director Yuji Horii and programmer Koichi Nakamura were already familiar figures in the Japanese microcomputer game scene. To complete the development of Dragon Quest, they enlisted renowned professionals from beyond the video game field, including Akira Toriyama for character design, composer Koichi Sugiyama, and several contributors from Weekly Shonen Jump. This trend of involving professionals from other creative fields in video game development was gaining momentum at the time, and since the early 1980s, manga artists, composers, and animation studios had already been contributing to the design of computer games long before the release of Dragon Quest. Tadashi Makimura, a manga artist known for his work in Weekly Shonen magazine, conceived the adventure game El Dorado Denki, Makimura's Adventure, published by NEC in January 1985. Shohei Harumoto, from Weekly Manga Action, illustrated the manga included in the box of The Screamer, published by Magical Zoo in 1985, his signature appearing in the closing credits. The animation studio Nippon Sunrise, celebrated for Gundam, designed the mecha featured in Cruise Chaser Blasty, published by Square on April 1986, while the pop-rock band Crystal King composed the opening and ending songs for Relics by Both Tech in February 1986. Furthermore, during this period, microcomputer games frequently incorporated background music inspired by the Western classical repertoire, borrowing from composers such as Dvorak, Handel, Bach, or Beethoven. Martian Vial, released by System Sacom in August 1985, opens with a fanfare just like Dragon Quest and uses classical-style pieces throughout its intro and cutscenes. Koichi Sugiyama himself composed the soundtrack for NEC's adventure game Wingman 2, published by NEC in April 1986, released just 1 month prior to Dragon Quest. The reason Dragon Quest became the first Famicom title to enlist professionals from outside the video game industry lies in its ability to successfully translate the microcomputer gaming culture onto the home console platform. The truth is, most of Dragon Quest's ideas and storytelling structures came straight from both Japanese and Western microcomputer RPGs that were widely popular at the time development began in 1985. The narrative structure known as Yusha to Mao, Hero and Demon King, where the player gathers multiple key items before reaching the final castle to defeat the last boss, is a straightforward story pattern already present in role-playing games prior to Dragon Quest. Games such as Mugen no Shinzou 2, published by Crystal Soft in 1985, Ultima, Hydlide, Fantasian, and Arcs Road were already using this same narrative pattern. In Arcs Road, published by Winkysoft in 1985, the king calls upon the hero to defeat the Demon King and rescue the kidnapped princess. In Fantasian, published by Crystal Soft the same year, the words Yusha and Mao explicitly appear in a line of dialogue following the defeat of the final boss. In Dragon Quest, the player rescues the princess and brings her back to the castle, just like in Mugen no Shinzou 2, and track down key items using coordinate clues, much like in Ultima 4, in which the player acquires an artifact used to determine the latitude and longitude of hidden objects. The very structure of Dragon Quest's world map appears directly influenced by Japanese microcomputer RPGs. The Dragon King's castle is visible from the very beginning of the game, while in Mugen no Shinzou 2 it only becomes accessible midway through the game, right after the player rescues the princess. This design encourages free exploration of the world map while maintaining a clear objective. Furthermore, Dragon Quest wasn't the only narrative-driven RPG of its time. Several other games already featured a guiding storyline paired with a sense of freedom. Mugen no Shinzou 2 and Dragon Quest may differ in their narrative styles and dialogue, but in both cases the story unfolds through conversations with villagers. Dragon Quest features greater narrative content and variety in its dialogues, typically delivering clues in a clearer way. However, if Mugen no Shinzou 2 offers few clues for exploration, the simplicity of its world map intuitively leads the player toward key locations such as towns or castles. In Dragon Quest, To make the story more engaging, the player uncovers the secret of the Dragon King's castle before even facing the final boss, just like in Mugen no Shinzou 2, where the last castle is only an illusion. And just like in Ark's Road, where the player first fights a man wielding a staff, who then reveals himself as a dragon, Dragon Quest has the player face the final boss's true form only after defeating his first phase. Other titles, such as Earth Warrior Liza and Marchen Vale, were also RPGs built around a central storyline. There also existed games such as The Screamer, which incorporated visuals and dialogues almost identical to those of a manga. The cover illustration of Dragon Quest box art, depicting a warrior confronting a dragon, often regarded as an homage to Dungeons & Dragons, also embodies a visual style that was widely popular among Japanese RPGs from that era. For instance, the title screen of Mugen no Shinzou adopts a visual design reminiscent of Dungeons & Dragons, while Dragon Quest's cover illustration is clearly influenced by manga aesthetics. Dragon Quest further integrates numerous features inherited from both Japanese and Western microcomputer RPGs of the era. Japanese language battle messages, 2D dungeons, a vision system that expands through torchlight inside caves, a status screen that turns red when the player takes damage, and even the overall structure of the series itself, beginning with a solitary adventure in the first installment, then shifting in Dragon Quest 2 and 3 to a party-based format reminiscent of Mugen no Shinzou 1, 2 and 3. In Dragon Quest, the first monsters encountered outside the castle are slimes, designed to let the player gather his first experience points and gradually strengthen his character, just like in Hydlide, published by T&E Soft in 1984, where slimes likewise appear early in the game as low-level enemies used to accumulate experience. By then, within the RPGs of that era, the image of the slime as a weak, early-game monster was already well established. Additionally, from the very beginnings of computer-based RPGs, developers were already using both first- and third-person battle perspectives, as well as simple level-up systems, such as in Mugen no Shinzou 2, where the hero's stats increase automatically, enabling the learning of new spells. The multi-window menu screen, a popular design trend of the era, seen in titles such as Hydlide 2, published by T&E Soft in 1985, and Hydlide Special, published by T&E Soft in 1986, was frequently used as a promotional feature in magazine advertisements. This simplified menu system, easy to handle with a controller, is also used in Mugen no Shinzou 2, where most operations can be executed using only the directional inputs and the confirm and cancel buttons. Mugen no Shinzou 2 even had mid-bosses, like Dullahan, who stands guard over the stairs of the Red Tower. Besides, in Dragon Quest, if the player agrees to the final boss's proposal to share half the world, it results in a bad ending. The screen fades to black, and the game ends immediately. This narrative structure, based on multiple endings, was already established in Japanese adventure games of the era, such as, again, published by NEC in 1984, a multi-scenario adventure whose intertwined storylines allowed the player to experience various lives and game systems, one of which adopted RPG mechanics. Time Tunnel, the famous adventure game published by Bond Soft in December 1984, lets the player journey into Earth's past through a time tunnel built on the planet Vegaside in order to repel an alien invasion. Time Tunnel includes 4 different endings, one of which is triggered when the player accepts to ally with the invaders during a key dialogue sequence. Notably, Yuji Horii, creator of Dragon Quest, was an avid admirer of Time Tunnel and cited it among his influences. Finally, even some of Dragon Quest's technical features can be traced back to earlier computer games. The MSX version of Hydlide used a password system for saving and loading, similar to the resurrection spell in Dragon Quest, while Ultima 4 featured a system in which the player would automatically be revived in the royal castle upon a game over. In essence, Dragon Quest is a game that condenses the very culture of PC gaming. Yuji Horii, once a young creator from the world of PC games, likely carried this collective memory of that culture and poured that knowledge into Dragon Quest, which he designed with a clear understanding of the differences between experienced computer players and Famicom users who were new to the RPG genre. Dragon Quest gathered the finest ideas and the most accessible aspects of both Japanese and Western PC games of its time, including aspects of their production, in order to create a Famicom title accessible to younger audiences. Therefore, the beginning of Dragon Quest is designed as a tutorial where the villagers introduce the game's systems and establish a comforting dialogue with the player. The outcome was a title that achieved a magnitude of influence far beyond what it could have reached as a PC release. Dragon Quest became the most important title in the popularization of the role-playing genre. Once limited to a few 100,000 computer players, it now reached millions through the Famicom, serving as a major vehicle for introducing RPGs to audiences who had never experienced PC gaming. In this way, the RPG boom thus took place on the Famicom. The genre went on to develop simultaneously on Famicom and computer, with both platforms influencing and complementing each other. Dragon Quest should not be remembered as a sudden revolution, but rather as an evolution of the advanced Japanese RPGs of the period, a genre that was already undergoing rapid growth. In essence, it crystallizes a decade of creative experimentation born on microcomputers that reached its peak with Mugen no Shinzou. Mugen no Shinzou, widely recognized as both the finest and most representative title of Japan's early classical RPGs, had already established the foundations. An open world, non-linear progression, dialogue-driven storytelling, and a symbolic universe, while Mugen no Shinzou 2, on the other hand, is often regarded as the original Dragon Quest.
全ての性能が一線を越えた。もっと好奇心。
NEC のパソコン PC-8800 シリーズ。
Mugen no Shinzo is a Japanese role-playing game for 8-bit personal computers, published by Crystal Soft in February 1984, developed and programmed by Kazunari Tomi. Graphic design was handled by Tatsuhiko Ishida. Kazunari Tomi began his programming journey on the Sharp MZ80K, quickly mastering the skills to create virtually anything in BASIC. After joining Crystal Soft, he delved into machine language and compilers, working with an additional MZ80B and a Hudson Form compiler, and discovered that these tools could dramatically accelerate the development of real-time games. In May 1983, he created Holy Sword on the PC-8001, a text-based adventure game set in a fantastical world, in which the player saves a princess trapped beneath the earth, an early precursor to Mugen no Shinzo. Mugen no Shinzo was conceived to expand the universe of Holy Sword into a full-fledged RPG, merging Ultima's top-down 2D map with Wizardry's first-person combat, enhanced by richer visuals and a more user-friendly interface. Mugen no Shinzo is regarded as one of the first Japanese games to use the term Keikenshi, experience points. The game was released at the dawn of Japan's RPG boom, a time when players were first experiencing the appeal of computer RPGs inspired by American games like Ultima and Wizardry. During the 1980s, the accessibility of PC games increased rapidly, and the Mugen no Shinzo series was among the 3 leading Japanese RPG franchises with Dragon Slayer and Hydlide, profoundly impacting future professional video game creators. Kazunari Tomi subsequently created his masterpiece, Mugen no Shinzou 2, published by Crystal Soft in 1985, and became one of the most recognized programmers of the time. He then joined Nihon Falcom and worked on Sorcerian, Star Trader, and Dinosaur, later developing the Luna series for Game Arts. Mugen no Shinzo tells the story of a hero on the brink of death. After cursing God, he is cast into a dream world that is neither heaven nor hell. To regain his life, he must obtain the Dream Heart within 30,000 days. In Mugen no Shinzo 2, the protagonist comes back to life from the dream world, in a world different from his original one, the dark realm known as Elder Ain. In order to return to his homeworld, he gathers allies and sets out to defeat the Dark Prince who reigns over Elder Ain. In Mugen no Shinzo 3, the hero ultimately returns to Louisard billions of years into the future. Mugen no Shinzo, released by Crystal Soft in March 1984 on the NEC PC-8801, PC-98, and Sharp MZ2500, is presented as the definitive role-playing game. At the start of the game, the hero, a monk who has lost his final battle on Earth, on the brink of death, utters a curse against the gods. Upon pronouncing his curse, breaking his sacred precepts, and falling into sin, he is cast into a world called the Dream World, which is neither heaven nor hell. To regain his life, he must find the Dream Heart, which holds the secret of immortality, within 30,000 days and embed it into his body to return to his world and be resurrected. If he fails to obtain the dream heart within 30,000 days, he will be separated from the cycle of reincarnation and doomed to eternal torment. The dream world is a surreal, baroque, twisted, and dangerous realm, home to other humans in similar plight, alongside half-human beings like dwarves and hobbits, mythical beasts such as Pegasus and griffins, and a wide variety of monsters, including giant scorpions, zombies, demons, and dragons. The terrain map is represented in 2D and scattered with cities and ruins, offering complete freedom of exploration within an enigmatic structure. Back then, Japanese RPGs were already depicting their world maps in far more colorful ways than Western titles, with plains made up of forests and mountains. The world map in the first Ultima, released in 1981, was depicted with simple, single-color symbol-like shapes. The plains were depicted as groups of green dots on a black background, the trees were drawn with alternating green circles, and mountains as overlapping white lines. When Mugen no Shinzo was released in March 1984, trees and mountains had become fully illustrated elements, drawn over a green field representing a plain. The player embarks on a mysterious adventure, exploring the terrain map and its dungeons to unravel the story. The journey begins in the town of Carlisle. To the west along the road is the fortress town of Makuhan. If the player keeps going west, he ends up back in Carlisle, giving the impression that the map loops endlessly. Yet new locations keep emerging one after another in this dream world, which is actually arranged in a diagonally twisted loop that ultimately stretches across a vast expanse. Consequently, when the player travels northwest or southeast, the same map keeps repeating at short intervals, while heading northeast or southwest reveals new areas one after another. Many ground paths are laid out diagonally, and the system is designed so that the player can experience both types of exploration. The player can move in any of 8 directions using the numeric keypad. 1 day elapses for every 10 steps across the terrain. In the cities, displayed in the form of interactive menus, the player can purchase weapons and armor, buy and sell tools, upgrade his stats, and obtain information and strategic tips by selecting the desired establishment from a list of options. Across the terrain map, the player can obtain special items and enter dungeons. Inside ruins, towers, or caves, the graphical representation takes the form of a pseudo-3D dungeon, shrouded in darkness, featuring a straightforward structure that can be easily mapped. The final dungeon is 4 times the scale of the standard dungeons. Within, the player must wield torches to illuminate the darkness, or may rely on magic. The player's vision changes according to the kind of light employed and fades over time. Each dungeon presents key events and battles that drive the story onward. The beginning of the game is quite challenging, and the player needs to acquire the necessary strength to survive in the dream world, earning enough money to improve his stats, since both inhabitants and monsters strike without warning. In order to survive, the player must first confront farmers, woodcutters, and merchants, claiming their gold coins by force. To restore his health points, the player can camp on the map using the numeric keypad's 5 key, recovering 1 health point for every day that passes. However, if the player chooses to rest anywhere other than over a city, he may be attacked at any moment. Health can also be restored by paying for rest and treatment at inns or hospitals. If the player falls under the effect of poison, his status will not recover on its own and can only be cured at the town hospital for a fee of 20 gold coins. If more than 30,000 days pass, it's game over. Should the player acquire the Necklace of Immortality, a rare resurrection item purchased for 500 gold coins, he will be blessed with a grace of 10,000 extra days. If the player dies permanently, his save file is deleted forever. For its time, and given that the genre was still in its early stages, Mugen no Shinzo demonstrates considerable inventiveness but remains essentially immature, with systematized gameplay and slow rendering that occasionally undermine the experience. Nonetheless, it stands as one of the most significant games in the history of Japanese RPGs, extremely rich in content and events, relatively simple to play, and impressively complete for a role-playing game of its time. The game offers an incredible atmosphere. The player embarks on a journey to survive and come back to life in an extremely dark vision of the world. Regarded as one of the pioneering masterpieces of Japanese RPGs, Mugen no Shinzo has had a significant impact on many games that followed due to its outstanding design. As the game begins, the player inputs his name. He can resume his saved game by entering the same name at the next startup. There is no character creation, and the status is fixed. The player embarks on the adventure alone, with no companions by his side. On the map, battles occur randomly in a turn-based system, and the encounter rate differs according to the terrain type. Enemies along the road are mostly human, whereas venturing off the path often leads to encounters with powerful monsters. The screen is divided into small sections: the terrain map, the head-to-head battle area with the enemy, and a command selection menu where the player can choose to fight, speak, escape, or hide. Commands can be selected via keyboard shortcuts or by moving the cursor up, down, left, or right and pressing the space key to confirm. The left part of the screen is dedicated to displaying the text-based commands. The player can perform two types of attacks: physical strikes with weapons or bare hands, and magical spells that consume magic power. There are also support magics that can increase or decrease stats. In combat, the player may engage in conversation with opponents who are either humans or fantastical creatures. There are three types of conversation: speak as equals, speak friendly, and speak aggressively. The result of a conversation depends on the enemy type and the intelligence of both participants. Successful conversations may give insights into important items and nearby events. By raising intelligence, evaluating the opponent's behavior, and picking the right conversational strategy, the player can also avoid fighting or gain hints to solve puzzles. At the beginning of a battle, the player may attempt to flee without penalty, though success depends on probability. If the player tries to escape after combat has begun, he loses 2 experience points. Success depends on the dexterity stats of both the player and the enemy. The game also features a hide command to either flee or perform a surprise attack at the cost of 10 experience points. The character does not acquire experience levels, but can boost his physical strength by paying 100 gold coins at the town's hospital. Physical strength also affects both attack power and accuracy. Therefore, by increasing physical strength, maximum health will also increase, up to 1.1 times its initial value. Although there is no level up in the traditional sense, the system is designed so that the player's base statistics increases as his physical strength grows. Thus, there are 4 fundamental stats in addition to physical strength: intelligence, dexterity, attack power, and evasion, which can be improved by gifting gold coins to the king and spending days training at Mugen Castle. However, there is a maximum limit to how much stats can be increased, and to raise them further, the player must use a special item that allows these stats to be raised to their maximum in exchange for his experience points. The player can also learn magic from a magician in exchange for money. However, he cannot choose which spells to learn. The magician selects the most practical spells based on the number of gold coins the player offers. The game features 14 types of magic, each with an elegant name like Fire, Become My Sword, or Spirit, Be My Shield, offering a great variety of spells available. Casting spells requires magical power. The player cannot cast spells without it. The player can increase his magical power by buying magic points at the magician's mansion, drinking from the Fountain of Paradise on the overworld map, or converting experience points into magic points with a special item. Each city thus offers its own characteristics and special events, so the player must immerse himself in each one to develop his various skills. By pressing 0 on the numeric keypad, the player can open the command menu to switch equipment, use magic, explore towns or dungeons, or save his progress. Weapons, armor, tools, and even special equipment can break. Although their durability is not displayed on screen, each item has a set durability value, and with a bit of experience, it's easy to predict when an item is about to break. Selling it just before then can be a clever move. Unlike RPGs of that era, like Ultima and Wizardry, which required the use of multiple different keyboard keys, Mugen no Shinzo was designed to simplify the input method. The game employs a dual input layout. The player moves the character's position using the numeric keypad and selects commands with the arrow keys. The main character starts off very weak, and although the player can fight enemies and earns experience points, since there is no leveling system, his stats do not increase automatically, and he never grows stronger. That's what makes this game unique. After overcoming the early learning curve, and once the character's skills have greatly increased, Mugen no Shinzo shifts into a straightforward exploration experience that maintains good overall balance. The player has complete freedom to choose the order of events, and although the game encourages exploration, reflection, and experimentation, various ideas were implemented to deliver information and hints that guide the player. He can get hints and directions from characters in towns by paying them a small amount of gold. These hints are often explicit, clearly indicating the destination or the required action according to the situation. However, some of them are intentionally cryptic and force the player to experiment with different possibilities. If the player succeeds in speaking with an enemy on the map, he can also receive valuable clues about important locations close to the battle area, including exact latitude and longitude coordinates. To this day, the world of Mugen no Shinzo, with its innovative 30,000-day system, still feels fresh and original. The 30,000-day limit is equivalent to about 80 years, which is roughly the length of a human life in real time. Seen from that perspective, it actually seems pretty realistic. Although the game can usually be completed in the first 10,000 days, the concept itself significantly enhances the experience. The enemies, inspired by Western folklore, are huge and take up nearly a quarter of the screen, leaving a powerful impression, greatly enhancing the player's ability to picture the game world. Colors and textures are created by shifting the color tone of each area and using generous shading techniques. Images are shown during event scenes as well. A picture of the town, merchants and guards appears together with the menu. In ruins and before entering caves, a contextual illustration appears, taking up roughly a quarter of the screen, making the adventure more engaging. There is a total of 59 images, along with the Crystal Soft logo, not counting the opening and ending images. Of these, 53 are enemy illustrations, matching the 53 different enemy types. Each enemy features a unique, large-sized illustration that is never recycled anywhere else in the game. The remaining 6 images are special illustrations created specifically for event sequences. Mugen no Shinzo adopts an avant-garde visual production, using large illustrations to emphasize key scenes that fully express the event's situations. However, on the original hardware, the display speed is extremely slow, and the number of loading times becomes a problem. It takes roughly 10 seconds just to render one image. In combat, it takes about 10 seconds to draw the enemy, and when the fight is over, it takes another 10 seconds to display the Crystal Soft logo. When the player enters a town, it takes 10 seconds to draw the scenery, and upon entering a shop, it takes another 10 seconds to display the shopkeeper. The pacing is undeniably bad. Mugen no Shinzo's main program is entirely written in BASIC, a language known for its relatively slow execution speed. Each shop uses a separately created program, and everything is connected together using slow executing merge instructions, which adds even more delay. Although there is no background music, the battle sound effects are memorable, even incorporating disc loading noises to represent specific situations. On the original PC-8801, sound output is limited to a single beep tone. However, with clever programming, it can be used to play simple melodies. In those days, PC games were frequently packaged with assorted physical extras designed to provide information or content that couldn't be represented within the game itself. Mugen no Shinzo comes with a reference manual and reference cards that explain the gameplay, along with a 15-page magic book detailing spells, special items, and the town's shops. The book also includes tips on how to access the final dungeon. The game's manual even explicitly mentions that a protective sticker should be placed on the disc. A booklet titled Dream World Genesis describes the origins of the 15 worlds that shape the universe, the Holy Sword linking them together, and the birth of the Dream World amid total war and chaos. The worldview is unique, suspended between the real world and the afterlife. Every character who appears are rivals also trying to escape the dream world, just like the protagonist. The story is fragmented, dramatic, and challenging to understand. The world's balance, its sheer size and mystery, and the variety of things to do, is perfectly crafted, ensuring the game never becomes repetitive. This is an RPG in which the player owns thoughts and imagination affect his fate. Depending on his decisions, his experience will change dramatically. Mugen no Shinzo stands as a masterpiece whose many innovative and wonderful ideas laid the foundation for the golden age of Japanese role-playing games. This golden age endured throughout the 1980s, and emblematic Japanese titles such as Mugen no Shinzo, The Screamer, Zavas, released by Popcom Soft in 1988, and Haja no Fuin, released by Kogado Studio in 1986, were notoriously challenging, yet their unique systems and worldview captivated many players, and left a lasting impact on modern RPGs. Mugen Kai Soseki, Genesis of the Dream World. These writings are the records left behind by a Doroid monk, discovered within an ancient tower. Before he vanished into the dream world, he had gathered many legends and uncovered several secrets of that world. What follows is an excerpt from these writings. We call this world the dream world. I do not know whether people truly refer to it by that name. I merely use the word that best fits what we have perceived. We have descended into this land, and through it we have come to know the depth of our own sins. We are monks of ruin. For one who has fallen into corruption as deeply as I have, this world appears as an endless chain of temptations. And so, for those who may come after me, I record these words. Tyron Zakimo. In those days, there was neither heaven nor earth, nothing at all. The ancient God of the universe first created the world of light, and next, the world of darkness. Once these two worlds came into being, the ancient God created 15-dimensional realms. Each of these worlds existed in the same place and at the same time, yet because their dimensional layers differed, not one could interfere with another. The ancient God granted a portion of his power to the inhabitants of each realm. By making them cooperate with one another, he intended that all 15 worlds would flourish. And then, wishing to watch over them from afar, he scattered the holy spheres throughout the realms as guides. After doing so, the ancient God disappeared. A long, long time passed, and the 15 worlds became filled with life. But prosperity did not last. The inhabitants of the world of light, who called themselves gods, and the inhabitants of the world of darkness, who called themselves demons, grew increasingly hostile toward one another. At some point, small disputes escalated. Eventually, all 15-dimensional realms were drawn into a full-scale war. Battles raged endlessly, blood was shed without limit. Dragons appeared in the human world, horned beasts in another, ogres in the elves' realm. The barriers between dimensions cracked, and chaos engulfed everything. Saddened by this tragic war, a crack formed within the sacred sword left behind by the ancient god, and fragments of it were scattered throughout the realms together with immense suffering. By the time the people of the world of light and the world of darkness realized the magnitude of their own folly and tried to stop the fighting, it was already too late. In their hands remained only 3-dimensional realms each, and everything else had fallen into darkness. The remaining 9 realms continue to drift in a state of distortion. It is said that the dream world encompasses all such worlds. From the legend of the 2 mountain dwarves. The dream world continues to drift among the fractures between dimensions. Because of the countless battles waged over hundreds of millions of years, untold numbers of races and monsters once lived here, but most of them can no longer be seen on the surface, and many survive only as myths. In this world, many remnants of holy power can still be found, and strange forces appear in unexpected places. Each of the legendary swords contains fragments of the divine blade. Moreover, deep beneath the ground, the energy sealed there continues to radiate outward. Because of this, it is said that many types of ancient magic from early ages can still be used in this land. This world reacts to the thoughts of human beings. If one dies while leaving behind a strong regret, the entrance to the dream world will quietly open, and before that person's soul can be taken away by the gods, their lingering emotion will take shape on this spot. For reasons unknown, those who are drawn into the dream world in such a state lose their humanity, and while still alive, gradually transform into monsters. There are times, however, when former inhabitants of this world can be seen living here. These people gather together in certain places, forming towns or temples. They are said to be the descendants of those who once drifted into the dream world. They are no longer humans of the earth. They possess astonishing longevity. My life is now nearing its end. This record is my final testament. I write one last thing. Entrust the heart of the dream world to the center. Tyron Zakimo.